Well, I am all ready to begin. Don't play this game, a cursed RPG of handcrafted found footage horror. Now, the game makes a big deal, a big point in the quick start, that you have to play, once you start the game, you only have 7 days to complete it, or else something bad will happen to you. So, once you have your character ready, and all your materials, the game in the quick start is laid out in 10 events. So, 1 week to get through 10 events. Let's go! The first event that happens in the Don't Play This Game, a cursed role-playing game of handcrafted found footage horror, deals with tragedy. The game starts off on kind of a sad note, as you roll a die and a random tragedy happens to kick off your adventure. In my case, a buddy of mine from culinary arts school, named Antonio, ended up getting in a fatal car accident. My character, Samson Flass, attended the funeral, and at the will reading, he was given a journal. That's kind of like a journal / recipe book. He's given a knife set and a little bit of money from the deceased. On my anchor here, you can see that I added a couple of things. So inherited wealth times 3 is a resource I added. I added Antonio. I made his nickname Meatball, which is kind of morbid considering how he passed. And then as far as artifacts go, there's a strange knife included in the knife set and a journal. Now, one thing, I did get a little carried away last night and did the first 3 events, so there's stuff on here that I added that has not been mentioned yet, so we'll get to that later. In the Don't Play This Game role-playing game, a cursed RPG of handcrafted found footage horror made by Parable Games, event number 2 in the story is called Disturbing Dream. I'm going to go ahead and read what I created for my character, Samson Flass. Disturbing Dream. The night after the will reading, Samson had a nightmare that he was back at culinary arts school. Something is off. The entire school is abandoned, and Samson feels he's needed somewhere, but he can't reach the destination. A voice calls out to him, clear but distant. Samson follows the voice, which sounds more and more like Mrs. O'Leary, his apartment neighbor. She's a sweet old Southern belle who cooks for him on occasion, traditional Southern food, knowing that, he is a cook. As he approaches her, her form melds into the darkness to a tall, hooded figure who hands Samson a wrapped parcel. He startles awake with the parcel resting in his pillow. Now, in the story, there's a couple of things that you do. First off, you get to add, the person that you thought you hear as a character. And so I have, down here under Friends, neighbor, Mrs. O'Leary. The second thing you do is, you roll for a list of locations. In this case, I got school. You also want to make a sketch of the hooded figure. So this is my poor attempt at artwork. Let's get right into it, folks. Event number 3 is called Sleepwalker. Samson finds himself at his uncle's Michelin star restaurant. Nothing is where it's supposed to be. Tables and chairs are in disarray. The food is completely disorganized, and it looks like the place has been robbed. Samson goes to his Uncle Rico's safe and starts to have a panic attack, fumbling with the combination. Now, at this point in the story, you have to roll a d6. If you get 4 or above, you lose 1 life point from a lack of sleep. If you roll 3 or below, though, then you lose 3 life points. So, I rolled it, I got a 6, and I lost 1 life point, marking it on my anchor / character sheet. Let's continue. Finally, the lock opens, and the safe is empty, save for a small totem made from twigs, string, and hair? He pockets it and violently wakes up, covered in blood. He's totally perplexed, as he himself is not bleeding. Now, I drew a picture of what this totem looked like, essentially like a stick figure into kind of a pentagram shape, and as far as where he woke up at, quite a mysterious turn of events. Event number 4 is called The Library. Having awoken from his nightmare and made it home, it dawned on Samson that the symbol looked indigenous in origin. He goes to the public library and finds a book on various Native American cultures, and discovers the image of the knife and the totem. While poring over the book, he feels a strong weight on his neck. Now at this point, you gotta roll a d10. If you roll lower than 6, you lose 1 life point as the paranoia begins to fray your nerves. Now when I rolled 5, so I did lose 1 life point. The book tells how the Iroquois believed in twin duality, that often in nature, twins would live up to one of 2 motifs, creation or destruction. This notion presents itself in Navajo cultural readings as well, as like counterbalancing principles, symbolized by twins. Welcome back, folks. Event 5 is called Panicked Phone Call. Let's get right into it. That night, Samson couldn't sleep. Was the entity a twin spirit of destruction? How could this be? Paranormal mumbo-jumbo, he decides. Just then the phone rings. Samson hears the voice of Uncle Rico on the other side. shouting amidst the sound of pots and pans clanging. Samson listens intently, but the fight abruptly ends. Silence. Now at this point, you pick a friend. In this case, I picked his Uncle Rico, who this is happening to, and you flip a coin. Tails, your friend lives. Heads, they die. And if they're killed, you gotta cross them off your character sheet. What I did was I pre-rolled it, so this is my chance cube from Disney. Wife and I went there for our 1-year anniversary. Red, I said kill. Blue, I said survive. There's 3 sides and 3 sides, so 50-50 odds. And I rolled a blue. Let's get back into it. Samson drives down to the restaurant just in time to meet the police outside. He fumbles nervously with his keys and finds the restaurant torn apart on the inside. Uncle Rico is in the back of the kitchen. He's been stabbed, but he's alive. Barely. As the paramedics rush him away, the trail of blood congeals into a symbol from the Native American research. The entity is indeed a dark spirit of destruction. And I drew a larger picture of the totem just so you could see it. Event number 6 is called The Abandoned Place. As Samson regroups the next few days, his dreams return to the totem. He was sure that he'd seen the symbol before, but where? It happened after a dinner shift at the restaurant. Rico was on the mend, and Samson decided to take a detour back to his apartment. That was when he saw it. He parked the car down the street and swung around the back of the large, abandoned building. Locked. Now at this point, you have to roll a d6. You get a 5 or a 6, you bust through the padlock. Luckily, I rolled a 5, so we're in. The old grocery store looked just like it did when he was a boy. Uncle Rico would often bring Samson along on his grocery runs. How odd. All the lights hummed with familiar energy. The shelves were stocked. Even the store PA system played the same 90s greatest hits from his memory. But where were all the people? Samson made his way back to the frozen section, when there in the fog of the freezer door was the totem symbol. Samson started to run as the color faded all around him. The reds, yellows, and blues of his memory turned pale and dusty. The aisles themselves seemed to shift and contort as he kept being diverted back to the frozen section. A chill ran up his spine as he realized the floors had become infested with bugs. Ants crawled up the shelves, cockroaches tickled his arms as they fell from the ceiling and all around him. Mindlessly thrashing, Samson finally was stilled by a voice, dark and sinister, calling to him from behind the glass of the frozen aisle. Event 7 is called An Exchange. Hello, called the voice. I've followed you for some time now, seeking an audience. An audience, Samson explained. What the hell do you want from me? I want to offer you a choice. You've done too much digging. I grow tired of your feeble attempts at answers. The entity's voice swelled to a cacophony of discordant notes. You will end your petty search for the truth and let me in, or I will take someone you love. Maybe that darling neighbor of yours, or your uncle. Samson felt his face grow hot. You've already taken something I love, you son of a bitch. You killed my friend Antonio. You put my uncle in the hospital. I'll be damned if you hurt anyone else. Just then, Samson felt something heavy in his pocket. The parcel from his dream. Unwrapping the cloth, he found Antonio's tribal knife and a picture of them together in culinary arts school. Mustering all of his strength, Samson threw his entire weight behind the knife swing, aiming at the totem symbol. The glass shattered as the entity let out a thunderous, animalistic bellow. In that split second, Samson sprinted for the entryway, tribal knife in hand, knowing that if he could hurt the entity, he could kill it. Event 8 is called The Tunnel. As Samson traveled towards the exit, all paths seemed to converge into one. A dark tunnel engulfs the scene as echoes of the entity's howls pierce the air like daggers. Samson halts in front of a large door. A seam of white light bursts forth from beyond as Samson charges through. He brings up his hand, blocking the light, in a chamber outside of time and space. At its center beats a large black heart. The rhythmic throbbing of its pulse sounds like a bass drum. It is awash with black fluid that looks like blood. The entity calls out to him, telling him to stop, but Samson strides forward. This is for Antonio, you son of a bitch. Event 9, Facing the Nightmare. Large, black, otherworldly tentacles erupt from the dark heart as the entire chamber seems to shake. You are just a man. Do you really think you can contend with me? The tentacles reach out to Samson, wrapping him in their inky grip. Samson struggles to escape as the life slowly gets crushed out of him. Now at this point, you gotta roll 3d10, trying to get 7 or higher. 7 or higher, you resist the squeeze. 6 or lower, you lose a life point. As you can see, I am going into the final boss fight, so to speak, with only 4 hit points left. Fantastic! Event 10 is called Fighting Back. This event consists of a series of dice rolls you have to accomplish. Every time you fail, you lose 1 life point. I'm down to only 4 life points, so we'll see how this goes. D4, roll a 3 or 4. There we go! D6, roll an even number. There we go! Nailed it. D8, roll a 6 or higher. There we go. There's 1 life point. 7, nailed it. D12, roll a 10 or higher. There we go! And finally, D20, roll an 18 or higher. Here we go. Fuck yeah! Nat 20! Well, looks like we just kicked the entity's ass. This one was for you, Antonio.